it is interesting. Like if you're practicing some kind of magic or witchcraft, you would think there would be easier ways to do it. I mean, maybe there aren't. Like then creating this whole mythology of like personified forces. Like you would think that there would be more direct routes to it, but maybe the theatrics of it. I mean, there's that whole thing of like theurgy, like you need like, and yeah, just like the dramatics of magical ritual being.
Yeah, I feel like that's the interesting thing that chaos magic tried to like circumvent, right? Is the theater and ceremony, and tried to get more down to like the mechanisms to which magic is achieved.
Right. But I don't know. Yeah, and then there's like people who dress up in like tall hats and like black robes.
It's yeah, for sure. And that's a really sick thing. I mean, like I was reading through Hecate's Fountain, this Kenneth Grant book we've talked about on the show that was gifted by a listener. Thanks for that, Baz, if you're listening. But it's got a lot of case studies of the rituals of the New Isis Lodge, Kenneth Grant's lodge, and it describes this insane ritual with like a sacred ape, like a literal baboon in the room, and like incense and drumming and dancing. And it's like I would want to be part of that subculture. It sounds absolutely insane to see, and like compared to the performances I watch these days, I would love to see something like that was like
a baboon. Yeah.
Well, that just like that kind of like total theater,
right.
That
I think that's what
could
it takes
like
to access the energy of it sometimes. That's why they do it. I mean, I can't just like sit here and like be like, yo, like
magic, snap your fingers.
Forces of luck. Please make this work, please. Like, it does probably take, I don't know. I mean, that makes sense. And that's like a very ancient inclination of like the putting on the show for the gods, like, and so that aspect of witchcraft, I think is interesting, but I was also kind of getting into the terrain of like the witch is like sort of like a stock monster, which is interesting. Like, the witch is like Halloween costume that you would have shelved next to like a zombie or a vampire, and what the connotations of that are. Because I feel like that's if we wanted to like answer like what is a witch with this episode, that's like the fastest way to an answer, even if it's not the correct answer.
Not even though, because that picture is more about the acts of the witch than it is about the witch themselves. Whereas like Wolfman is a guy who turns into a person who turns into a wolf, and Dracula is somebody who goes around sucking blood. But a witch is like, it represents like the ritual and the dance in the night, and like the kind of just magic.
It's more complex.
Yeah.
What's the difference between like a witch and a vampire? I was thinking about that too. Like, because so I think we both watched this movie, The Naked Witch, which is like this great kind of drive-in movie, like very B movie, like B- movie, and in that the witch is sort of like this resurrected creature, and like she even had like a stake through her, I think, like very like sort of vampire-esque revival and like sort of character, right? Like this dangerous undead figure terrorizing a town. And I was like, well, so why is this not just like a vampire, just because of the blood thing? Like, and so I think the distinction between like, because I think last time I said something how like a vampire has something to do with like being like a very powerful magician to a certain extent, like this will thing, like this sort of spell that keeps them alive unnaturally.
I think this is a question. This is a question that's up for contention, or like a point of contention right now. Is like, does this movement of life force that you're like conjuring through witchcraft, does it have a cost on the other end that is vampiric? Right. And people land on different sides of that, certainly. So in that case, I mean, the things could be perceived to be related, but I think there's also the perception of like white magic and black magic within witchcraft, certainly.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, like where that line is, because I don't think, I mean, of course, like it's literally black and white, which doesn't really exist. But of course, it's like a spectrum, and I feel like a lot of it will fall in the gray area.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to think about like an act of white magic, an act of black magic, and there's like different schools of thought about what what is one, like something that only serves yourself is black magic, like that's like a big thing,
mm-hmm.
or like that harms somebody is black magic, or like magic you do like in alignment with like, you know, the natural forces of the world is white magic, like
right.
All of these very subjective things, like, and yeah, so that's always fascinated me, like the line there, like even in like the Wicked Witch and like the Good Witch, like those like film characters and archetypes are interesting, and I feel like they're played with a lot, especially like not lately, but like, you know, postmodern film and television and literature play with you know, what's a good witch, what's a bad, like, you know, like what makes something bad, like what make, you know, like what makes black magic.
Yeah, I would say most people who like practice things like Wicca and stuff would say that, you know, there is life force, like is just there and is attainable through ritual and magic, and that it's not drawn, and even focusing, you know, magic on other people as opposed to something that is more related to nature and you know, the world or existence, reality, like I think is something that would be could be scorned upon. I don't know, it's crazy too, like just going back to those conceptions of what makes the devil and like the black magic of devil worship was such a big thing with the Templars, because, you know, of that rumor of them worshiping like a transgressive god, Baphomet.
Yeah.
But Baphomet has its connection to like Abraxas and Ishtar, and is regarded, you know, in the modern way as that the goddess, because a lot of these ancient goddesses are goddesses of love and war simultaneously. So there's kind of like that like the Barbelo of Gnosticism is the first emanation of consciousness. So it's kind of like this filter before the all, you know, and it's where like the opposites meet and stuff like that. That's why Baphomet appears as like hermaphroditic.
Yeah, well, that Levi thing.
Yes,
and that's, I mean,
so much later.
Fin de Siècle, like.
You can find this episode in its entirety and more exclusive content at patreon.com/consensusunreality.